everybody and welcome back to the channel, and if you're new, you're really welcome. I'm Jane and my husband Mike is holding the camera. We're British, early retirees, debt and mortgage free, and living a thrifty, frugal and money saving life on a super tight budget here in Brittany in northwest France. And every Wednesday we open our home and invite you in for a mid-week money chat. Now this Wednesday we continue with the chat that we started on Sunday, and if you missed it we will of course put the link to that below. In our Facebook group we asked people to share with us, do you have any problems budgeting? Do you have any problems sticking to a budget? Do you have any problems with setting up sinking funds? How are you dealing with debt? How do you manage money? Because the nuts and bolts of living a frugal life is that we are intentional with our money. So we're going to finish answering your questions today. Let's get going. Sheila, thank you so much for what you shared with us, because it is really common. And what Sheila shared with us is that she's suffering from what I would call a scarcity mindset. Really worried about rising prices, really worried about food and having enough food in the house. When my children were young, Sheila, I had to have a lot of food in the house. It was just something that made me feel safe as a mother. I didn't have much money, but my goodness, my children never went without food. And I could be prone, in the way that you shared with me, Sheila, that I could overbuy. And I think this is not uncommon that people worry about this. And there's a way that I got around it and that I want to share with you, Sheila. And the first one is, each and every week before you go shopping, you need to do a stock check. Everything in your cupboards, everything in your freezer, everything in your fridge. And from that, you start with a meal plan. How many meals have I actually got? Especially if you eat meat, for example, and you think in the freezer, a packet of sausages, that's a meal. I've got some chicken drumsticks, that's a meal. And that's what I mean by how many meals have you actually got. Then you go through your cupboard and you've got a bag of potatoes, and you go through another cupboard and there's tins of baked beans. You think, well, that's baked potatoes and baked beans, or I've got eggs and I've got egg chips and beans. That's what I mean, Sheila, by go through your cupboards and seeing how many meals do I have. And then you can decide, Sheila, how many meals at any one time you want to have. I always like to have 2 weeks to 4 weeks food in the house. Now, some people would think, no, I like to have 6 months in the house. That is their choice. It's not my choice, but I respect the choice of others. So there you go, Sheila, that's your starting point. Always do a stock check. Always know how many meals you've got in the house. The next one is, Sheila, is to make sure you've always got meal plans. Because if you've got a lot in the freezer, a lot in the fridge, you need to be using it. You need to be using it. You don't just stockpile it and never use it. You do need to be using it. And plan from that first. The next part of that, something that I do, and I know more of you are doing this, is to set aside a percentage of your monthly supermarket spend to stock up. And for us, it's 10%. We put 10% into long-term stocking up. That might not always be food. That might be laundry liquid. That might be toilet rolls. That might be powdered milk. It might be UHT milk. 1 month, I spent a lot on tinned vegetables. Tinned potatoes, dauphinoise potatoes. I also put lentils away. So a month you might put away, I'll put away more pasta. You might spend 10% of it and go, right, I'm going to fill up the cupboard under the stairs with loo rolls. But so you find a way of reassuring yourself that actually we're not short of anything at all. We've got enough, and I can ease back on the panic a bit, because that's what it is. When you're in the supermarket and you're thinking, oh, I need to get more of that, I need to get more of that. Sometimes we need to just step back and just breathe a bit. And if we've gone in with a list and we've calmed ourselves by doing our stock check, and we've reassured ourselves by looking at that meal plan and how many meals do I have in the house, we can feel a bit more easy, can't we? Hope that helps, Sheila. The next point came from Joanne, and thank you for this one, Joanne, because Joanne said, could you give us any tips on analysing your budget and what is spent? We can often write a budget, can't we, Joanne, and just plod along with it, and then we suddenly think to ourselves, I don't think this is working as well as it could do, or there's something we've missed off our budget, or we're always overspending on that. We have to have a re-evaluation of our budget on a regular basis. And this is why we, Mike and I, and most of you watching this, write a unique budget every single month. Some of those figures are copied over, aren't they? But then you have to watch out for things like, has your energy prices gone up? Has your car fuel gone up? We, for example, a huge hike in the price of pet food. So we had to evaluate the amount of money we were spending there. Went from 50 to 70, quite a hike. So let's have a look at these things that you can do. Obviously plan in advance, Joanne, of everything you're going to spend. And that is especially important when it comes to discretionary spending. We as a couple give ourselves a small amount of pocket money each month. We give each other, we take basically from our budget €50 each from a month. One month to the next, sometimes it can just sit there as cash in our wallets. We don't spend it, but we take that amount of money, Joanne, but we stick to it. We don't spend any more than that. If I want any fabric, or if I go into a charity shop, or I go and buy anything that's off budget, it can only come from that amount of money, and I stick to it. The next one is looking at your food budget. If you are always overspending, is your food budget enough? But if your house is stuffed full of food and you're bringing it home going, well, how am I going to rearrange things in the freezer to fit all this new food in? You might be spending too much. So evaluate that. The next one is obviously looking at your budget. I mean, we have quite an amount of discretionary spending that often we do not spend. So we're in discussion at the moment. Do we add another amount of money to our savings each month? Or do we actually plan to spend this on something else? We are probably going to spend it on the garden at the moment, but it's discussion that we need to have. If you're on your own, Joanne, you're just going to have a chat with yourself about it. If you live in a family, this is something that you can have on a regular basis, but we evaluate our budget every single month. Sarah says, if an unexpected expense comes up, and further in the discussion, Sarah admits it's not unexpected, it's unplanned. And then she pulls money from her emergency fund, and then she has to fill her emergency fund back up again, and she doesn't feel she makes any headway. Okay, Sarah, if you have got your emergency fund in place, you might need to do a no spend for quite a while, maybe for 2 or 3 months, until you build up those sinking funds. Think about what it is, Sarah, and we've had that conversation, haven't we, through Facebook here, about every single thing that you forget teaches you that needs a sinking fund. So whether it's your car, whether it's dental, whether it's saving for glasses, whether it's anything that the children need, you're going to need funds for something in your house. Your washing machine, dishwasher, cooker, they're not immortal. They at some stage they're going to either break or need replacing. So Sarah, you answered the question yourself that you said it's not unexpected, it's unplanned. So everybody out there, me included, we've had something at some stage that we didn't plan for. But what we need to do with that is make sure that in the future we plan for it. Thank you to Alice and Jen, because you raised the same point about having a family with incomes coming in at different stages throughout the month. We've got that too. We get paid on the 15th, the 21st, and the last day of the month. And I'm going to go into that. First of all, though, we've discussed this and we've had this back and forward discussion in the Facebook group, is that all of your bills are once a month. And you shop for your food once a week. And you've got random expenses throughout the year, from Christmas to birthdays, things that the children need, the car being done, on different dates. And what we all have to do when we have all of this is we have to have a really good visual calendar. And I like to have one, if you remember those ones that you get in Poundland, they're usually nice and long and thin, and you can see the whole month there. And each and every month you need to work out throughout the year, every 4 weeks. So you need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, mum gets paid. 1, 2, 3, 4, dad gets paid. 1, 2, 3, 4, child benefit comes in. And then each month, universal credit comes in. And that's something that you need to do. So you need to know all the money coming in and the exact dates, because it will be on a different date each month as it rolls over as when the money comes in. And you need equally on that calendar so you can see it. So you don't think to yourself, oh, I think we'll all go out for fish and chips, and then think, oh, wallet. No, actually, the electricity bill's coming. Is all the money going out? And you need to have a really clear and consistent budget that says, well, over the month, this is how much money comes in, and this is how much money goes out. And you need to have a very clear amount of how much money the children need, and how much is left for saving, and how much is going for discretionary spending. And the whole thing as well is to get that. So get in as many no-spend days as you possibly can. Get in as many no-spend weeks or months as you possibly can to help you build those savings. I think I've said this 3 times now. Everything you don't need, don't want, don't like, don't wear, don't use, sell it. That money goes aside. It goes into savings. Keep working on that budget. Keep it visual. Keep running totals. Track your spending. Every single receipt. You're in the supermarket, any shop. Do you want a receipt? Yes, please. Take it home. Write it down in your budget book. Check that against your bank statements. It makes it a little bit more difficult. And I know this because we get 3 payments a month. But what we do is we don't spend anything until all the money's come in. Now, I mean, we have to obviously pay our direct debits, our electricity goes out, our insurance goes out, and all of those things go out. But we don't use or take any discretionary spending or supermarket spending until all the money's coming in. And if it's things like schools and events like that you don't know when it's happening, ask their teacher for a school calendar. Join the parents' WhatsApp group so you know what's happening. Keep up to date. Check their bags. Make sure you've got every letter coming back from school. Check it every single looming day because they come in thick and fast so you know what's happening. So you know, build up your savings, build up your sinking funds. It'll get easier and easier as time goes on. But get very organised on that visual. All the money coming in and all the money coming out so you're really aware and you don't spend anything when you shouldn't be spending it. Nikki, thank you so much for raising your next point. That you basically said, how do you stick to a budget? I find it really, really hard to stick to a budget. Nikki, you're not unusual. Most people out there haven't got any budget at all. They just wander from one month to the next, bouncing paycheck to paycheck, barely getting through, debt to debt. So, you're on a starting point that you actually want to have a budget. So there's your first point. Make sure that your budget is written down and that you check it on a very regular basis. Have it open. I have got a sideboard in my dining room, and on there I keep all my notepads, I keep all of my budget books, I put all my receipts in. Everything is there. Both of us have got our budgeting apps on our phone. We can both check this really quickly. We are checking it all the time to make sure what's in and what's out. But you need to have a reason why, Nikki. Why do you want to have a budget? We have a budget because if we didn't budget, we would be broke. We don't have enough money to waste. We have to be really careful with our money. We have to save our money. If we want anything, we've got to save it. And that's our big reason why. Create a system. Make sure that you have a day and a time that you sit down with a cup of tea and your budget book and you go through it. Build those skills over time. The more you do it, the easier it will be. To begin with, you might need to do this every single day. Get home from the shops, get my purse out, take my receipts out, open my budget book, write them in there. keep my running totals. I know at any one time. I know right now I have €109 left in my food budget for this month. I know that because I just did my budget. I went shopping yesterday. I came home, I got my receipts, I took them out, and I wrote them in my book. So even now, years and years later of budgeting, I still have my system where I write it in my book. Another part of this, I think, Nikki, you said that you found spending really hard and you wanted to go to a cash envelope system. That's really good as long as you give your debit card or your credit card to somebody else and it's not in your house and you can't use it. You can get it back off them. Don't give it to a friend in another county. Give it to a friend up the street to look after for you, who you can trust, obviously, or a family member who you can absolutely trust. And make sure you only go out with cash. And when it's gone, it's gone. Thank you to everybody who watches, and we love to hear from you. If there's anything that you feel that I've missed out today in answering the questions, feel free to join in. And if you have a question about budgeting, about frugal living, any of those issues, feel free to leave the question below. Thanks again. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.